Welcome back to another video. Today we are on this website I found where it says NFL playoff predictor. Basically, you get to predict every team's win losses. You could change who wins. I went through every game of the week, kind of predicted my winners, and what I think some of the records will be in the league. Obviously I didn't think too crazy when doing this. It was kind of just a little let's have some fun type of thing. And we're going to predict the playoff games, but I want to talk about every team also in just what I predicted their record to be. Um, and yeah, so that's basically what we are doing. Also, I wanted to say, I obviously haven't uploaded too much on YouTube recently, and I kind of just been, uploading on TikTok with clips and just Twitch streaming and stuff like that. So yeah, like that's kind of what I've been mainly doing. If you want to check out my Twitch, I'll probably link it in the bottom of this video. And I'm trying to upload more, trying to just put out a lot of content overall. But yeah, so we're going to start off with the AFC East and their record predictions for me, what I have. With the Miami Dolphins, I think the Dolphins made some decent moves, getting some linebackers on this team. Jordan Brooks, I think, is going to help them a lot. They also did lose Xavier Howard, though. Overall, I think this team's still a really good team. And going through kind of picking my winners and losers, I ended up with a record of 11-6 after kind of predicting all their wins and their schedule. Yeah, I mean, I think their division, they're gonna have a lot of division games. Obviously, you play each team in your division twice. I think just off their division games alone, they're the best team in this division. I think the Jets, obviously with Aaron Rodgers back, they could possibly be a team that is scary. But the Bills got worse. I don't think the Patriots are going to do good, as you can see their record. But yeah, 11-6 for the Dolphins. I just think that they're going to still be a good team like last year. I don't know what they do in the playoffs, but that's what I have for the regular season record. For the Bills, we have 10-7. The Bills, obviously, I think just off having Josh Allen alone, they're going to be at least a decent team. At least good enough to make the playoffs, be a 10-win team. But overall, I think this team, obviously losing some receivers, not good. Their DBs, they lost, obviously Tre'Davious White, they got rid of. And yeah, I think overall this team's okay, good enough to make the playoffs, but I don't think they'll be much in the playoffs. I think this is kind of a gap year where hopefully, for Bills fans, for anyone who is a Bills fan, they kind of, take this season to kind of figure out who's their pieces on defense, some of their receivers, who's really like worth keeping on this team, and then next year they kind of make like a true push at the playoffs again. I don't think they're going to be that, like I said, that crazy. 10-7 still a really good record. I think they'll make the playoffs, but that's probably as far as they'll get is the playoffs. I don't think they're going to win the Super Bowl. Then we have the Jets, 9-8. And the Jets, I think, obviously will have a better record than last year. I think they'll be a playoff team. As you can see, they are in the 7th seed I have them as. I think they're going to be good enough to make a playoff spot, but I don't know if this team's that good yet. They obviously have a lot of players on defense. They have a lot of players on offense, both young, DBs, some young receivers like Garrett Wilson, Breece Hall at running back. They have a lot of young players. It's, I think, going to come down to, is Aaron Rodgers going to look like old Aaron Rodgers? Or is he going to look like Aaron Rodgers after tearing his Achilles, which we'll have to see what that's going to look like. And that could change a lot if the Jets are going to be really good. I think he's going to come back okay, but I don't think he's going to provide too much more than just a kind of okay quarterback. And I think they're going to be a 9-8 team. And so, yeah, next up we have obviously the Patriots, 2-15. It's going to be a rough year for the Patriots. I think Drake May is going to be good, but I don't know if he's going to start for sure. I think he will. But Jacoby Brissett, I'm pretty sure they might consider. But yeah, I mean, Drake May, I think, is going to take some time to develop. I think he'll be a good quarterback, maybe long term. But rookie year, I mean, they don't have many options on this team at all on offense. And then their defense, it looks a lot worse. They just traded Matthew Judon. They don't have the best defense either. That's probably the better part of the team. But overall, I think this team's just not good. So yeah, 2-15, which is, I'm pretty sure, tied. Yeah, tied for the worst record in the league with the Broncos and the Panthers in this prediction. Um, Again, y'all can come at me if you want in the comments about my prediction for some of these teams. It's just a quick prediction. I wasn't looking too much into this. I was just quickly kind of looking through some of these records and picking who I think is going to win. But yeah, next up we have the AFC North. So starting off with the Ravens, who I have 13-4. I think the Ravens are going to be a really good team, obviously with the addition of Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, sophomore season. I think this team is really nice. Obviously, they lost a few guys off their defense in free agency, like Patrick Queen, stuff like that. They lost their defensive coordinator, now head coach of my team, the Seahawks. And I think that is going to be stuff that kind of changes them a little bit. But overall, I think their offense gets even better with Derrick Henry. And I think they're going to go 13-4, which is going to be good enough for the second seed in the AFC. Yeah, I just think their team is really good. They have, obviously, MVP of the league, amazing running back. I think overall, really good defense. Just overall, they're a really good team, and I expect them to be as good as they were kind of last year. I don't remember what the record was last year, but it's probably the same as 13-4 or close to it. And then next up, we have the Bengals. I have the Bengals going 10-7. Obviously, the Bengals, this is kind of an interesting one because it's kind of like, I don't know, type of team. But I think Joe Burrow is going to have a really good year. I think, they're going to be pretty good this year. Jamar Chase looking for a contract extension. T. Higgins, who wanted out. Let's see what he could do. I think overall they have a pretty good team. I think they made some good moves in the offseason. I think they're going to finish with at least 10 wins, and which is good for the 6th seed. And then I have the Browns 9-8. I think the Browns are going to be a decent team, kind of like they've been recently. Obviously, their defense is amazing, but I think on offense they didn't do enough to really make this team that good. Like Nick Chubb, who will be back probably about 4, 5, 6 games into the season. I don't know what he's gonna look like. I don't know if he's gonna be the same Nick Chubb. Is he gonna have a limited amount of carries? I don't know what that's gonna look like. On offense, they traded for Jerry Jeudy, but overall, their offense I think is relatively similar. Aside from that, and I don't think it's enough for them to be that good. Obviously, they're gonna have a good defense. Offense is still the question. I think. Can Amari Cooper power that? Can Deshaun Watson be the quarterback that you really have that leads this team? I don't know. We'll see. And then after that, we have the Steelers 8-9. I think the Steelers still are going to be a decent team when it comes to competing just off their defense, which is kind of what they've been for the last few years, especially. Is they find a way to get some wins because their defense is pretty good. But I think the QB situation is a little bit scary. You have Justin Fields and Russell Wilson, who are both kind of fighting for that starting job. And I still don't know who's going to end up being the starter. And I don't know if that's a good thing. Like, it could be a good thing that they're both playing good, but the way it looks like is it's just they don't know who to pick for the starter because they're both not showing what a starter should be for their team. So, yeah, I think that's going to be the reason why they kind of lose some games. Quarterback spot. I think it'll be still better than Kenny Pickett, but I still think overall this team's just not good. And I could see them definitely going 8-9, where they're still decent-ish, but they still find a way to win some games, but not enough to make the playoffs. Next up, we have the AFC South with the Texans. I have as 12-5, good enough for the 3rd seed. And yeah, this team made a lot of moves in the offseason. I think they had an amazing year last year, sophomore year for CJ Stroud, Tank Dell coming back from injury. Nico Collins had a great year last year, and I think they're going to build on top of that with a lot of the additions that they've got. Danielle Hunter comes to the team. On defense, you get on offense, you get players like Stephon Diggs, Joe Mixon. This team is going to be nice, okay? I think they're going to be really nice. I have them as the 3rd seed. Yeah, I think they're going to have an amazing year. Texans, definitely a team that could be sneaky competitive for the Super Bowl, okay? Call it what you want. I think they're a sneaky competitive team for the Super Bowl. Maybe it's a little early and maybe next year is more accurate, but, I think they're a team that could definitely compete this year. Next up, we have the Indianapolis Colts, who I have at 9-8. And, yeah, The Indianapolis Colts, I think, is going to be a decent team. I don't think they're going to be that good. That's why I have them as 9-8. Anthony Richardson really is going to be like his rookie season. Last year he kind of barely played. So I think that's going to be something that it's going to be nice to see. But overall, I think this team's decent, but I don't think it has enough to really win that many games to even get into the playoffs. 9-8 kind of sucks. They tie with two other teams, the Jets and the Browns, to kind of get into this last playoff spot, and it ends up going to the Jets. But yeah, I could definitely see them being a above average team, maybe slightly, above 500. But that's about it. The Titans I have is 8-9, which is honestly not that bad for I think their predictions. I think a lot of people have them being pretty bad. I don't think this team's that bad. Obviously with getting L'Jarius Sneed, with getting some of the other players that they've gotten on this team, I think they're going to be really, really actually pretty decent for what a lot of people expect them to be. I think it's going to come down to Will Levis. Calvin Ridley they have some weapons at running back with Tony Pollard. Sophomore year for Tajay Spears. See what happens with that. But overall, I think they're going to be a team that's honestly pretty decent. And this division's honestly pretty good. Anytime I played franchise in the past, this is one of the divisions I used to pick to rebuild because the Texans were bad, the Colts were bad, the Titans were like borderline bad, and the Jaguars were bad. They were always a bad division, and now they're actually a really good division, I think. Leading into my next team, the Jaguars, who I have is 7-10, which I kind of feel bad because I feel like the Jaguars are definitely better than 7-10, but just based off their division, they're gonna find a way, I think, to lose a good amount of games. I really like their team, but they lost Calvin Ridley. Overall, I think their team's still pretty decent. They lost Rayshawn Jenkins. They lost a few pieces to this team. They added a few guys also, though, to be fair. We'll see how they end up playing. Gabe Davis comes, Brian Thomas for the receivers. I think they're going to be still a decent team. That's why I have them with 7 wins. But I think it's just the fact that they're in such a good division. Or I won't say such a good division. I think mid. It's kind of like mid. But, like, they're all mid. They don't have, like, a bad team in that division. Except, obviously, the Texans are pretty good. And I think just off the division games alone, they're going to find a way to lose some of those division games, and it's going to be the reason why they go 7-10. Kind of sucks that I think that they end up like that, but it is what it is. Next up, we have the AFC West. We have obviously the defending champions for the last 2 years, the Chiefs, 15-2. Maybe a little aggressive with their record, but when you play this division for 6 of your games in the season, you're basically getting 6 free wins. I don't expect them to lose a single division game. The Chargers are not good. The Raiders are not good, and neither are the Broncos. All these teams are not good. So based off that alone, I think that's going to be basically a free 6 wins. That's I think the biggest thing of why I have them as 15-2 is their division. I have the Chiefs going 15-2. Obviously, their team looks, I think, really, really nice. They did lose L'Jarius Sneed, which does kind of suck, but the receiving core guy, I think, better. 15-2. I don't think there's that much to talk about. They're the defending champions. Chargers, 7-10. Another team where, obviously, their defense has always kind of been a problem. Obviously, now they have basically a completely different receiving core. They got rid of their running back in Austin Eckler. Kind of starting a little bit fresh, but I think having Justin Herbert alone is going to power them to 7 wins. You could think they're not going to be good, which obviously 7-10 is still not a good team. But I think that they're going to get at least 7 wins just off having Justin Herbert. If they play another bad team like I had in some of these matchups when I was kind of going through, if you take a bad team and a bad team going against each other, I think the team with the better quarterback finds a way to win those games. And I think Justin Herbert's honestly become underrated at this point for a quarterback just because of his team success, which has not been a lot of his problem. When it's mainly his defense usually that just lets up 30 points and they score 29. I think they're still going to have a decent season, 7-10. Hopefully start getting some more pieces, but But yeah, next up we have the Raiders 6-11. I think their quarterback position is better this year with Gardner Minshew, but I still think this team isn't good enough, even though that is technically an upgrade at quarterback. The team's still not good. Their division, I think, is where they're mainly going to find a way to possibly get wins. Chargers and the Broncos, but a lot of their out of conference matchups, I think, are pretty hard. And I don't think that they're going to win, that many games. 6-11, I think, is accurate for this team. You can see what happens if they start off the season pretty bad. I could see a world where Devonta Adams requests a trade and he's gone, and then this definitely even looks more like an accurate chance of it happening. Next up we have the 2-15 Broncos. The Broncos are going to be pretty bad, okay? Bo Nix, obviously, maybe he proves me wrong, but this team is not good. They don't have many weapons on offense. They don't have a good defense aside Pat Surtain. The team's just not that good at all. There's not much else you can really say. It's just not a good team. I definitely think they're going to be one of the bottom teams in the league, and we'll see what happens. But there's not much else to really say. Moving on to the NFC, we have the NFC East to start off, and we have the Cowboys going 13-4. Obviously, Cowboys were really good last year. I think they'll continue to be really good again this year. That puts them at the 3rd seed, and I still have some other teams doing better than them. But I think they're still going to be a really good team. Obviously, 2 of their teams in their division are pretty bad. I basically think these are free 4 wins. And then I think I had it where they split the series with the Eagles. They win one, they lose one. Overall, good team. I think their biggest problem is kind of running back. Now that they lost Tony Pollard, they got Ezekiel Elliott back. This team's obviously amazing. Offense, defense, really good team. The return of Trayvon Diggs, they did just lose DaRon Bland, so it's like you can't really pair them. You can't really find a way to have them both play. I think this team's obviously still going to be really good. Don't know what they do in the postseason because they're kind of known for being good in the regular season and then kind of turn to frauds. Next up, we have the Eagles, 11-6, and I think this is a pretty decent record for them. Obviously, they just got Jahan Dotson. They got Saquon Barkley. I think that's going to be really nice, but there's still a lot of questions with this team. They lost Jason Kelce. Obviously, we're going to see how that goes without Jason Kelce. And overall, their defense is still interesting. They got some draft picks at corner, but hey, bro, James Bradberry. I know today when I'm recording this, it is the day where you can make roster cuts. James Bradberry, I'm not gonna lie, it could be his last day on this team. His bald ass might be kicked off the team today. He was terrible last year. I don't know. You got to kind of study the downfall of their DB core. It went downhill pretty quick. Darius Slay and James Bradberry. If you asked who's the top duo at corner for all the teams about 2 years ago, a lot of people probably would have said James Bradberry and Darius Slay. And now you look at the team, and Darius Slay's still good. But, James Bradberry, your bald ass is going to get kicked off the team this year. I'm not going to lie. Roster cuts are today. After I make this video, I'll look at my phone. I wouldn't be surprised if I see you're off the team. That's their biggest question. Safety, DBs, their defense, aside from their D-line and linebackers-ish, is really the problem with this team. But I still think 11-6 is a decent record. Puts them at 5 seed in the playoffs. And then we have the Giants, who we have at 4-13. They got Daniel Jones at quarterback, okay? Daniel Jones is at quarterback. Your team is going to win 4 games. The year before that, they had that kind of fluke run, which is why they paid him damn near $50 million a year, which I think is still crazy that Daniel Jones is about to get paid the bag. This team's just still not that good, okay? They got Brian Burns. I think that was a good addition to the team on defense. Obviously drafted Malik Neighbors, but again, you still have Daniel Jones at quarterback. We'll see what they could do. Maybe I'm a little too strong with them going 4-13. They probably could win some more games than that. Like I said, I kind of went through this quick, kind of just pick some shit. I don't think they're going to be that good this year, though. Next up, we have the Commanders, 3-14. Jaden Daniels, I think, is going to be a quarterback that takes a little bit of time to develop. I think he'll still be good. But yeah, I think he's going to be developing, and it's going to take more than this year. Overall, they have basically the veteran squad. Austin Eckler, Bobby Wagner, they both got 2 old heads. Basically, guys that damn near close to retiring. Maybe they just thought Washington was a good state to go retire in. Yeah, that's basically this team. The draft picks have not panned out much, every time they kind of draft guys. So hopefully that's different with Jaden Daniels. And they only have Terry McLaurin at receiver basically now. They got rid of Jahan Dotson. Curtis Samuel left them in free agency. Yeah, this team's not going to be good either, okay? That's why I have them at 3-14. Next up, we got in the NFC North. We got, I think, a really good division. We have at 14 and 3, the Detroit Lions. 14 and 3. They're going to be a really good team. They were really good last year. And yeah, this team, I think it's really going to be powered by, can Jared Goff lead this team to a Super Bowl or not? Do they need someone better than Jared Goff? They still have, I think, a lot of obviously good pieces they added to their defense, I think, which is definitely needed, as corner was kind of one of their biggest problems, but maybe not this year. And yeah, I think this team's going to be good. Obviously, Sam Laporta, second year. Jahmyr Gibbs, second year. A lot of these players, second years, are still relatively young players, young team. Yeah, they're going to be good. 14 and 3, which puts them at second seed, tied with the best record in the NFC with the 49ers. So yeah. Second, we have the Green Bay Packers, 10 and 7. Yeah, the Packers 100% I think are still going to be a really good team. They have a really young receiving core, really young team in general on offense. They got Josh Jacobs, which some of you could maybe debate he's a downgrade from Aaron Jones. Some of you might debate that he's an upgrade from Aaron Jones. So we'll have to see how that kind of goes. And yeah, so I have them at 10 and 7. I think Jordan Love's going to continue to cook. And I think they're going to still be a really good team. I like their defense. I like this team in general. Packers find a way to always be good, okay? It's just the Packers. They always find a way to be good. Next up, we have the Bears at 8 and 9. I think they're going to have a better year than last year, but I am not too much on the hype train. I mean, I am, but I think a lot of these games, it's just going to be the classic Bears where they find a way to lose these games. It's just the Bears. That's what the Bears do. It finds a way to always happen. So, yeah, I have them as 8 and 9. It's okay, Bears. Maybe it takes another year or two to develop. But, yeah, I think Caleb Williams is going to come in. He's going to be decent. You got some additions. I don't know how good Keenan Allen will be. I don't know how good DeAndre Swift will be. I don't know how good some of these players will be. But I have them as 8 and 9. Okay. Last in that division, we have the Vikings, 5 and 12. Probably could have added a win or two to their record if they didn't lose J.J. McCarthy. But now they have Sam Darnold at QB. And I don't know if that's good enough to win them some games. You have Jordan Addison. He likes driving 200 miles an hour and running pretty fast. You have Justin Jefferson still. They have obviously a decent team. They got Aaron Jones. So, yeah, I think this team's going to be decent. But because they're quarterback, they're going to find a way to only win 5 games. Their defense is still pretty bad. I'm not going to lie. So, yeah, that's the NFC North. And then now we have the NFC South. My bad. Sorry for that. We're back. But yeah, so we have next up in the NFC South, we have the Falcons, 11 and 6. I think with Kirk Cousins coming to this team, they're going to be really good. Well, not really good. They're going to be still, I think, obviously not insane, but like just because their division, I think they find a way to win 11 games. And I think they're going to be pretty good this year. I'm not going to lie. Bijan Robinson, second year. Maybe, hopefully, Kyle Pitts locks in. Drake London. Honestly, I think he's getting drafted really high in fantasy for some reason. Kind of a big risk, okay? Big risk, I think. Maybe he does actually do really good, but me personally, I didn't draft him. I wouldn't draft him that high, at least. Next up, we have the Buccaneers, 8 and 9. I think the Buccaneers were pretty good last year, but I think we're not going to see Baker Mayfield have as good of a season as he did last year. Their receiving core is pretty old. Their defense is, it's just the old team. A lot of this team is pretty old, aside from, Rashad White at running back, and they have obviously some other good young guys, but a lot of this team is pretty old. I don't think they're going to be that good. 8-9 still an okay record. Not much to really say there. Next up, we have the Saints, who is also I have at 8-9. Yeah, I think they need a new quarterback. Okay. Obviously, I don't think that's the only problem with this team, but I do think that Derek Carr is not the answer. Maybe they pivot to Spencer Rattler. Maybe they try to get a quarterback this draft. I don't know, but yeah, I think they'll be decent. But this team, I don't think is that good to win more than 8 or 9 games, and I don't think they're gonna make the playoffs. Then we have the 2-15 Panthers. Maybe this is a little too aggressive. I could definitely see a world where they are way better than 2-15. Maybe get like 5 wins, 6 wins. So maybe it's a little too aggressive, but I don't think this team's good. They traded obviously Brian Burns. Overall, the team still, how good is Bryce Young is basically gonna be determined a lot this season. They got some upgrades at receiver, I think. A rookie running back who's gonna miss a few games, but he'll play. Xavier Legette at receiver. I think they have obviously a decent team in terms of young talent. It's just about what they could actually pan out to be. I don't think this is their year. I think they could, though, end up actually being a decent team. And then we have next up in the NFC West, we have the 49ers. The 49ers, who I have as the number 1 seed, 14-3. Yeah, I think they're going to be pretty good. It's the 49ers. Their team's just stacked, okay? There's not really much else to say about this team, aside from the fact that their team's just really good. It's just, can they win a Super Bowl or not? What Brandon Ayuk is going to do is, I guess, something you have to look at. And hopefully the number 1 overall pick in fantasy consensus and Madden cover, both curses don't mess up Christian McCaffrey. Because there's a curse with the Madden cover, and there's a curse with the consensus first pick in fantasy. And he's both of those. So let's just hope for a healthy season for Christian McCaffrey. Even me as a Seahawks fan, hope for a healthy season for him. But yeah, overall this team is obviously amazing. So they're going to go 14-3. Next up, my favorite team, the Seattle Seahawks, who I have barely making the playoffs. Maybe you call it bias. I don't really care. I think we're going to be good this year, okay? Call it what you want. I think we're going to be pretty good this year. Our biggest problem is obviously quarterback, I guess, with Geno. I don't think he's good enough to win us a Super Bowl, but I think he's good enough to make us into the playoffs. The linebackers could definitely improve, but I think we're going to see a really good season out of Jackson Smith-Njigba, Kenneth Walker. We still have a lot of young pieces on this team. Tariq Woolen, DK Metcalf, Devin Witherspoon. The team is pretty good, pretty young. We just have obviously a few spots with some veterans. And yeah, I think we're going to be good enough to make the playoffs. I don't know what's going to happen after that. I'm not going to be delusional and say we're going to win the Super Bowl because, yeah, but I can be maybe partially delusional and think we're making the playoffs. It's not even delusional, okay? We're going to make the playoffs. It's not delusional at all. To think that, we're good enough to make the playoffs, okay? Don't diss on my Seahawks. Next up, we have the 9-8 Rams, who I think are going to be good. But I think without Aaron Donald, you're gonna see it's gonna change up a little bit on defense. They did get Tre'Davious White at corner. I think that's a really nice addition. I don't know what he's gonna be at this point of his career. Hopefully a healthy season for Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford. Team's pretty old aside from Puka and Kyron Williams, who kind of just showed up out of nowhere and made this team, who looked like they really needed a rebuild, looked like they actually could still compete because they had 2 young guys that really played way over expectations. So then, yeah, next and finally, we have the 4-13 Arizona Cardinals, who, yeah, I think they're going to have an okay season, I guess, at 4-13. I guess you say it's decent. They don't have much on this team at all, okay? Defense is pretty bad. Their O-line's pretty bad. A lot of this team's pretty bad except for Trey McBride. James Conner's okay, but I could see a world where he loses his job to Trey Benson if they're, playing really bad and he's an older running back. Maybe they think about a trade route, trade into a team that needs a running back, and have Trey Benson kind of take over, or at least pivot to the younger player. But yeah, they have Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, James Conner, Kyler Murray. Rest of the team's pretty bad. Okay. Defense, they still have Buda Baker. Don't know how long he's going to be on the team. Overall, this team's just not that good. Okay, the team's not that good. 4-13, I have them. We're just gonna have to see what Marvin Harrison is gonna be, basically. But yeah, so now it's time to predict the playoff games. Okay, starting off, we have Detroit versus Seahawks, and I could be delusional. I'm gonna say the Seahawks. Okay, call it delusion, right? But the Seahawks have beat the Lions every time we played them for the last I don't know how long. Okay, so call it delusional, but I think we're gonna beat the Lions. Okay, I think we're gonna beat the Lions. Packers versus the Cowboys. I have the Cowboys. Eagles Falcons. I have the Eagles. Okay, that's my initial predictions just off that. So yeah, I mean Cowboys. I think they almost found a way. I think to lose to the Packers, but they're not gonna lose to the Packers. Okay. Then we have the Eagles versus the Falcons. Yeah, I think it's gonna come down to just the Eagles. I think are just the more experienced team in the playoffs, and I think that's gonna be the thing that determines it. So tough season, good season for the Falcons, but I think the Eagles end up winning. Then I have the 49ers, and I have the Cowboys, and I have the 49ers. Okay, it's gonna be obviously maybe not a bold pick, but I think the 49ers are gonna go back. I would say the Lions are the second team that I think also could be in the Super Bowl. If I had to pick two teams that I think would be in the Super Bowl, it's one of those two teams. Obviously, maybe slightly delusional thinking the Seahawks could beat them, but we beat them every time. We always beat the Lions. If you go a different route and think the Lions win, then I think the Lions could possibly make it all the way. But we just seem to have their number every time we play them. So, yeah, but... so yeah, that's who I have in the Super Bowl is the 49ers. We'll see how that pick turns out. Then we have the Ravens versus the Jets. I have the Ravens. I think the Ravens are just a better team. I think this team's really, really good. Then we have, I think, the Texans over the Bengals. I think the Texans, just with all the additions they made, they're going to be really, really good. And then I have the... This is a good matchup. I'm gonna say the Dolphins win. Then I'm gonna say the Chiefs win this game. The Chiefs are gonna for sure beat this team. And then this is a really, really good matchup. I'm gonna say the Ravens win again, and we're gonna have kind of a repeat-ish. I mean, maybe not with the Cowboys, but this is close to a repeat. And I'm gonna say they're gonna find a way. The Ravens are going to find a way to win, and I have them as the Super Bowl champions. Yep. You heard it here. The Baltimore Ravens are my prediction to win the Super Bowl. Yeah, so call it what you want. Obviously, I was just having a little bit of fun with it. This could definitely change as the season goes along. Trades happen during the season. Injuries happen during the season. But this is kind of before the season starts who I predict to actually end up winning. Yeah, y'all let me know who y'all think is going to win the Super Bowl. Just want to have a little bit of fun with it. And yeah, y'all let me know. And thanks for watching. I'll see y'all in the next one.